Do you remember Schoolhouse Rock? I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. That little dancing Bill, remember him? That was the way that I learned how a bill becomes a law. The way we make law in America is when someone writes a bill and it goes through the committee process in Congress. One House of Congress votes on it. And if the other House of Congress votes on it, and if it passes both houses, majority rules, yay! If it gets a majority vote, it goes to the president. If the president signs it, law. It's law. Now, in Schoolhouse Rock, the little dancing Bill was all bedraggled and tired-looking by the end of the song, because it's hard to become a law. Schoolhouse Rock after-school TV watching kids in the 80s, like me, learned that it is hard for a bill to become a law, but at least it is an understandable process. Now, of course, there are exceptions to the way that it works. There can be joint resolutions of Congress. There can be bills that have to start in one House of Congress versus the other. Certain bills have to go through certain committees or multiple committees, right? There can be filibusters in the Senate where a senator can block or at least delay the Senate vote on a bill. But those are exceptions. We all learned it in those PSAs. At least all those things used to be exceptions. That filibuster thing is now being used in the Senate like it never was before. It used to be used in exceptional circumstances. When an individual senator or a minority group of senators didn't like something, they would hold up a vote on it. It's a sort of undemocratic tactic. It's not a majority rule sort of thing. But it was also a way to give the minority some power in the Senate. And as long as it wasn't abused, it was just part of how people understood the Senate to work. So say I was like 8 when I was memorizing the lyrics to Schoolhouse Rock. Here's the use of the filibuster over time in the Senate, starting when I was 8. Starting when I was born? When does that start? Starting when I was born. Okay. There's sort of vague trend upwards, right? But we're talking about a few dozen per year, give or take. But since the Republicans lost control of the Senate these last couple of terms, check out the use of the filibuster. Boing! Oh, it's just not for exceptions anymore. Yeah, the Republicans in the Senate have changed the whole game. Look at that. So now there is a routine filibuster, a standard permanent filibuster of all legislation. Everything takes a filibuster overriding 60 votes to pass now. Every major piece of legislation, no matter what. What this means is that they have changed the basic way that America works. They have overridden Schoolhouse Rock. There's no longer majority rule. Now there is a process by which you can get around this, right? You can bring up legislation in the Senate in a way that it can't be filibustered. It's a little complicated, but it's called the budget reconciliation process. Now, some Obama officials have floated the idea that they might use the budget reconciliation process to bring up Obama's health care reform plan and maybe the global warming plan. So the Republican minority can't stop it from being voted on. They can't filibuster it. You know, they can still vote against it. They just can't prevent it from passing, even if it gets a majority vote, by using the filibuster. Now, the Republican who used to be Obama's Commerce Secretary nominee, Senator Judd Gregg of New Hampshire, he reacted to this prospect this week by saying this, quote, "That would be the Chicago approach to governing. Strong-arm it through. You're talking about running over the minority, putting them in cement, and throwing them in the Chicago River." Really? Or maybe you're just talking about restoring the radical idea that I'm just a bill, and if I get a majority vote in both houses of Congress and the president signs me, I'm a law. Incredibly, Talking Points memo reports now that 8 conservative Democrats, 8 conservadems, have signed a letter, along with dozens of Republicans, warning the White House not to use this 50-vote rule to get around the filibuster and bring up the global warming bill. Why would Democrats want to give Republicans the power to block an up or down vote on that? To block the president's agenda from the minority? Joining us now is Senator Mark Begich, Democrat of Alaska and a member of the new Evan Bayh-led caucus of moderate Senate Democrats. Senator Begich, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you very much. I have to tell you, there's a new book out called Mouse House, which kind of updates how bills are are done. My 6-year-old son, I've read that to him, and I got to get you a copy of the book. It's the new version of how it's presented.
Now, can you sing along to it, or is it a picture book?
It's a picture book, and it's
okay.
actually very good, and you'd find it enjoyable, and actually I think about 100 other people might find it enjoyable. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, if we get to be in the same place, maybe you and I can come up with danceable, memorable skits to act it out.
I'm for it.
All right. I have to ask you, you are not one of these 8 Democratic senators who signed on to this letter, but you have been meeting with with the moderate Democrat caucus that has just been founded. Do you agree with the 8 Democrats who say the Republicans should be allowed to filibuster the climate change legislation?
Well, no, and the issue on the filibuster, I didn't see your chart because I'm in this dark room here where I don't get to see your screen, but I know they have overused it and abused it, and that's been the problem. And I don't think we should utilize the filibuster on major pieces of legislation such as climate change, energy, health care, many issues that are coming forward. But I didn't sign. I've seen letters like that, several of them around these issues, which I have not signed because you want to keep some flexibility to get the legislation that I think this country is looking forward to. Now, saying that, I do have to. I watched your preview before I sat in this chair, and I thought, geez, do I really want to be on here with Rachel? But I love your show, and I'm happy to, I guess, pull the short straw of the group. But I was happy to come on because I think part of the perception is that these moderate Democrats are against the president in some way, and we're not. And here's what I love. I've been in the Oval Office as late as Friday with the president, with 3 other Democrats. And what I love about the president is he is willing to hear diverse ideas. We're not robots. We come into this office with new ideas, new approaches. And what's great about the Democratic Party, we're very different in a variety of ways. And I think that's what he's hoping for and how we're going to solve a lot of these problems. I think as the moderate Democrats have talked, the issues, the pillars in his budget of health care, energy, the issue of climate change, the issue of deficit reduction, these are issues we do support. How we get there, is the devil in the details. But I think the difference between us and the Republicans is we're just not a bunch of robots that hear one word and go down the path. We're diverse, but unified in the sense of that we need to move this country forward on those critical issues that the president is anxious to move forward. On
the issue of health care and on the issue of global warming, though, it seems likely from this vantage point that those issues will pass if they're brought forward under the 50-vote rule, if they're brought forward under the budget reconciliation rule. And so far it is the moderate Democrats who are saying, no, we want them to be brought up under terms that would allow them to be filibustered. That would probably mean that those don't pass. That's why I think a lot of Democrats, and particularly liberals, are frustrated that it would be Democrats who would be helping Republicans undermine the chances for those things passing.
Yeah, I guess I would disagree. Maybe I've only been here 10 weeks. I'm a little naive about it, but I doubt it based on what I've learned, and 10 weeks feels like 10 years here. I think that what we have to do is we have to present the best case to the American people, just as we did in a variety of other projects or other bills throughout the first part of this year. Think of the stimulus bill. I think the moderate Democrats, even though it wasn't exactly like the president wanted, it was clearly not what the Republicans wanted. We were able to pick up the necessary votes, get a comprehensive plan on stimulus in the first phase, and move it forward. I think on health care, there is no question this country, if you look at any polling data, health care is a top priority. And I think if Republicans don't see the light and participate in solving this problem, if they want to just hang off on the side and just be the party of no, that's a decision they're going to make, and they'll probably pay for it in 2010. But people like myself are practical. We want to get things done. We're going to do everything we can to make sure pieces of legislation that are critical, and the president has made these issues critical, energy, health care, education, and deficit reduction in his budget, we see those issues as also critical.
Senator, I have to interrupt you. Sorry, speaking of filibuster, I have to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I have to call cloture here for a second because I want to try to...
It takes 60 votes.
I'm voting 60 times right here.
There we go.
Will you commit to supporting efforts to bring up important legislation under budget reconciliation rules, even if other moderate Democrats try to stop that?
I'll tell you, Rachel, the answer is probably no, because I won't commit either way on it at this point. I want to see what's coming forward. And plus, the way this system works, in 3 weeks we're going to be dealing with the budget. Is that an adequate time to deal with a significant piece of legislation? I don't think so. We have to make sure we do this right because we're dealing with millions of people. So, but I will tell you, I'm not closing the door either. You know, and I've made that clear, but that's where I stand now. It's not one that I'm sure you're excited about. You want me to say just deal with 51 and rock and roll, but the reality is we got to see what's coming forward. But I am not going to just kowtow on the, you know, as your commentary said at the beginning, to the Republicans and bend for their needs. We're going to do what's right for this country. The election was clear in 2008, and we need to move forward. And Republicans want to be no. That's a decision. They'll face that tune in 2010.
Ultimately, the Republicans are definitely trying to stop the president's agenda.
On everything.
On everything. But the question is whether or not conservative Democrats, moderate Democrats, are going to be people who slow down the president's agenda and make it less likely to pass, or whether they're going to be able to make it more likely to pass. And I think with what Evan Bayh has articulated as the agenda for this group that you have joined, it seems like it's a decelerant, it's a block, it's going to be a barrier to the president's agenda, not an accelerator.
Yeah, let me just say this, that just because Senator Bayh says what he says does not mean no one speaks as a group. We speak as individuals. We come together as moderates. We'll find our common ground where we think we can do and move legislation forward. That is our goal. It is to get things done, not to stall out things, and support the 4 pillars in the president's budget on health care, education, deficit reduction, and energy. That's what we want to do, but we want to move it and not get stuck in these 60 filibuster votes that have been destructive to this process in the 10 weeks I've been here.
Well, Senator Begich, I hope you still don't feel like you drew the short straw, and I hope you'll come back and talk to us about that legislation when it comes up.
I will do it, and I'll also bring you the book.
All right. Excellent. It's a deal,
Okay.
And I'll accept it as a bribe.
Thank you. I'll report it as a gift.
Very good. Senator Mark Begich is a Democrat of Alaska. It's really kind of you to be here, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure.